More kids in the village. And this is actually at my house, my rooms. Typical village life. Lisrat's the oldest girl in the family. That's a shell from the Cape. A bunch of kids from neighbors and friends of mine collect these shells, paint them, send them over to the kids over there, and they make necklaces out of them. It's kind of fun. This is my backyard. It's my croquet set, important tool. More kids that we were looking after. We moved a lot of stuff in a landmine, and so we were with him for some weeks while he healed. And Soraya, you remember Soraya? She's paralyzed, and we're doing work with her family. Shaharzad's a colleague, graduated from Smith College down the road here, and she just finished up international development degree at Oxford. First Afghan woman to go to Oxford University since the king in the days of the 70s. And she volunteers off and on with us. Incredible privilege to have her. Our first big project, here's a small project, typical things, all from school kids. School furniture that we've been working on prototypes for. This was the first big project that Marigold took on when we were still a part-time organization in between Shelter for Life projects. Big bridge, and we negotiated with 6 villages in the area to rebuild the deck. And we very consciously said this is going to be a school as much as a project. We resisted some of the tendencies, some of the dynamics that are in play there, just to go ahead and do this, hire a few locals, bang out the bridge, and we decided let's make this a community project. There's something called the National Solidarity Program going on in Afghanistan. It's a very good example of really engaging the community and having them take a strong role. If you're interested in good models, NSP, not without some problems, but NSP, a great one to look at. But I took some cues from the NSP and said, we're going to make this a very, the villagers are going to be the ones, the primary workers and catalysts for this project. All volunteers for the village. For a couple of weeks, I had several friends, including one of you actually might know this is Michael Green. Some of my friends from Amherst came over, took time off from work, and helped us finish up the decking of the bridge. So some fun cross-cultural hoopla going on there. So there's the before and after. And they were so very happy and very justifiably proud of this bridge. You know, they did it, most of it. Rich, this is sort of an example of a kind of a creative moment that was very, very meaningful for the villagers. Because this is the battle zone, it's very easy to find shrapnel and bullet casings and all sorts of things. On the ground near this village, I picked up a couple of really nasty pieces of scrap rocket shrapnel. Brought it back to Rich here, who has, this is like for me really cool. If I had 2 or 3 lifetimes, I would have, one of them would be doing what he was doing. He has a blacksmith forge in his backyard. He's a carpentry shop. It's really cool. In Greenfield, down the road here. So we took a piece of shrapnel, cut it up into pieces like so, and melted it down, and we made a nail out of it. So the last board of the bridge, we didn't nail down. When we finished the bridge, we all took a break for the winter, and we had agreed we would have our big final ceremony in the spring. And we presented this as a gift from us, from Americans, saying that we are thinking about you, we're with you, we're rooting for you. And this is a gift for us. It talks about redemption, the possibility of things that are meant to destroy you can be turned into things transformed into something like a sign of the future. Very, very meaningful to them. I used stuff from old Hafiz, some Persian poetry, as well as some biblical references to swords and the plowshares, things being redeemed and changed. Very meaningful for them. We also talked about with the village, with the men of the village and the teachers about trying a pilot program teaching sign language to the children. There were about half a dozen of them in the village, maybe 5. So we started a class for deaf kids and their siblings, so the entire family could learn sign language and reading and writing, diary. And here's an example, again, where I got really excited because of things that I could envision seeing. But again, sometimes Afghans, particularly if they ask for it, who are interested in maybe some Western solutions with some Western resources, okay. But in this case, it was more useful to introduce them to look at other Afghans who have come up with ideas and solutions for their problems. So we asked some Afghan teachers from Jalalabad and from Kabul who've been doing this sort of stuff. Oh, there's Anita. To help train our teacher to monitor our program. We need to capitalize on that more. But again, when Afghans see that other Afghans are doing this, it's useful. Especially because from my standpoint, I'm really worried about the girls in the village. Nusrat, we saw a picture of her earlier, made this declaration that I want to be the first woman teacher in my village. There's never been a woman teacher in this village, never in history, as far as we know. And puts her really kind of swimming against the stream. And so easy for me, or to bring a Western female colleague and say, look at us fun Westerners, and we do these things, you should do these things too. Well, when our friends from the other school down south, I said, please, when you come, bring women teachers, because we need, our girls need positive female role models, some inspiration. And what I didn't really fully understand that actually the men in the village need positive female role models, strong, smart women who aren't bad women for being strong and smart. And so that was, this particular first visit was terribly important for, because one of the husbands of one of the women here on the side, was obviously proud and honored about to have a wife who could do these things. And the men in the village are going, hey, this isn't bad, this is okay. More schoolrooms being built. And we have the last couple of sections here, and then we'll about 5 minutes over, so bear with me. We were approached by the Afghan Midwives Association, asked us when we started as a full-time organization if we could help them find funding to do continuing education, sort of the first standalone project in Afghanistan by a chapter of the Midwife Association, which is a national group. And we spent 3 months studying it to see if it would be a wise idea, and decided it would be a good thing. So we do some monitoring, and we fundraise for these women so that they can do their training. This is continuing ed for currently certified practicing midwives. This isn't basic education. There's a great program going on right now, Merlin, and a lot of big donors are behind that. But there's also a need for sort of second tier or ongoing continuing ed. As some of you may know, Afghanistan is one of the worst places to be either an expectant mother or a newborn. Hakim Aziz, great guy, Minister of Health, and then our last big project, kind of a bricks and mortar thing. Sometimes we're doing some training, sometimes we're doing construction work. Is the Ministry of Health asked us to, if we would build a new tuberculosis facility. That's half of the old one, right there. This serves the province of 0.8 million people. And they had got some new inspiration to come up with a new TV program, including a facility. We found a donor here in the US and set up the project. Very, very interesting and difficult working with local office. We have such a congenial, interpersonal relationship with the guys there that they are happy for us. Don't even worry about the paperwork. Don't worry about the inspections. We're fine. And we had to constantly fight against that and say, no, all the more so since we're on friendly terms, we need for you to inspect and ratify every step of this game. And we set out without being, moral, irritations about it or being holier than thou. We wanted to say this project needs to be three things. It needs to be built very well. It has to be high quality, strong building, earthquake mitigating, all this sort of stuff. Second is that we want to make it beautiful. It should grace the community. It should look good. People should like to see this building. And third is that we said this is the most delicate issue, is that we want to make this halal. We want to make this clean. We want no bribes, no corruption. And the way that we kind of pushed that idea was from the not from the standpoint so much, you guys, you're so corrupt you can't even run your own projects. From our standpoint, we're saying we're guests here. We're here at your pleasure and by your permission. And if we're going to do things, we want to do things in a respectful way. We want to give things that we would give ourselves. That simple concept like that for them really meant a lot. Anyway, that's the TV play. And the Minister of Health from the central government came up, an amazing lady. These are just a few pictures of some of our board friends and people who are helping us with projects. This is our office. This is our residence. You can see part of it to the right, part of it to the left here. Well, I'll wrap up here. These are a few of our office friends. I wonder if we should have Amina share a little bit, or should we just start with some conversation? I would love. Amina has been really helpful for us last year because one of the things that we found with the midwife program is that it seemed really difficult for us to do any kind of meaningful assessment to see how well the program really was going. Because in fact, the first 2 years, we've gotten all sorts of encouragement and praise from the Ministry of Health, from the Midwife Association. But as we got to know people more and try to see things more, we realized that there are some potential problems and some issues, and yet we wanted to be really good stewards of the money, donor money we were getting. We wanted to really make sure that we were truly helping the Afghans, not just doing things and making it look like we're doing things and having a good time of it, but that we were actually doing things that were having some sort of impact on the issue of maternal health and infant health. So we've started a process that Amina has joined us on, which is to come up with more effective evaluating tools to figure out how we can, how this program can get better. And so Amina's been helpful with that. She's a particular benefit to us because she has a quality which I think a lot of NGOs appreciate, which is being able to think in both worlds, the Western world and the Central Asian world, and to appreciate the processes and the values. And so people like that are really important and valuable. And Amina's had far more than I have, and like I suspect more or less most of you, or all of you, she's had a lot of good training time in the academy, and has had some good experience working not only for a little kind of ma and pa shop like ours, but working for the UN and Aga Khan, Acadia, and other groups that are kind of more prominent. So it's great to have her. She's helpful to us. And I encourage you, if you want to say anything now or during the process of conversation, but Professor, if you want to tell us how we should.
Yeah, I think we should learn from you for 5 minutes with the understanding that when we open the floor up, people can ask you both of your questions, including Amina. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. Well, what should I say? Sometimes me and Gary in Taliban office in Afghanistan, we have a lot of discussions with New England coffee that we make. And then, but very briefly about me, my journey to international development started very rough. I was one of those who wanted always to be comfortable, but fortunate or unfortunate, in a journey that I landed all the time rough ones. Yeah, 13 years that I'm away from Tajikistan. I was born in Pamir, so mountain girl. Trying to debate with Gary about Vermont mountains compared to range of Hindu Kush mountains. But yeah, so shortly started my journey from Canada. So my first English was Canadian, heavy accent Canadian English, which I never spoke before. And I would speak Russian all the time, although I'm coming from Tajik background. Funny, weird, I can't explain it, but this is what it is. So, and the language that I speak at home is oral language. So I have to call my parents rather than write them. So it's very interesting. And with Gary, how I met with Gary, one of the presentations that I attended, and I thought, this guy speaks, because I've worked with many other big NGOs, with Acadian, and then I worked with other NGOs who were looking at Afghanistan, but many Tajikistan that was going through transitional stage. In 1992 we had the civil war, and then since 95 we're going through this transitional stage. Everyone is defining where the country is. But back to Afghanistan, which I have only 5 minutes, it's 9 years. That in 2004, my first visit to Kabul, and my friends were saying, okay, you have 2 weeks assignment to develop programs for for people who return to Afghanistan after Taliban just left. So my role was to design programs for children, kind of a mini schools, bring them back, put them back to the systems, and let's roll it, math, science, chemistry, English languages. Little that I knew, my 2 weeks assignment turned into 3 years assignment in Afghanistan, throughout all of these provinces that I started working with literacy projects, health and education projects, especially for women, and women we consider age of 15 up to 35, 45. So that's a lot of work. But then came here to do my graduate program, and then with Gary, 3 years back and forth. And in one of my comprehensive defense, I invited Gary, your friends of Marigold, to come to my presentation and see what I talk about. And basically that's how it started. I got involved with evaluation of the project of midwifery programs, and went back to Talukan, the office, the picture that you saw. So shock after shock in Talukan, because it's very, it's one of the North province. Then in the North province is one of the village. So at the very, very first day, perhaps first week that I arrived, there was a lot of turbulence in Afghanistan. The whole idea of these Western-driven money donors, NGOs, what are they doing? So the government started questioning a lot of NGOs. So now when I arrive and I want to talk to lots of midwives, I wanted to have an interview, it's very complicated. We talk about interviewing skills, we talk about how do we approach, we're talking about me somehow looking Muslim, my name is Muslim, and I'm coming with an American guy. So that's a lot of dynamics to figure out. And then talk about, putting in evaluation programs, time frame. How long is to do evaluation programs? And can you go with the questions defined? You sit in Amherst, and that's what we talk about all the time. You sit in Amherst and you design the programs. which thanks God we didn't design it. We just left it half. Let's say 20% we left it open. 20% of our questions were all right, but then it was just going to the field, and once you land into the field, it's totally different picture. And different picture, the question to every practitioner, everyone who goes into conflict, I don't want to say it's conflict, but it's chaotic environment when you go there, is whether you yourself is ready. How much you yourself are ready to give up what you're coming with. And to me it was shock, because I left Afghanistan 2006 having a big hope at Afghanistan that will have some development. 2009 I was shocked. Just when I arrived in Kabul, I was shocked. Shocked to see how country is actually gone back, regressed. It was a lot of, for me personally also, very difficult to see, very difficult to mobile around, because I would kind of have a little scarf and I would walk around. That was very difficult to walk in Kabul, to comprehend the level of intensity, like a lot of helicopters flying around, a lot of international NGOs, big cars, lots of money, expensive stuff, and hardly you can see people, like hardly you can see real people, like where Afghans are. Kabul to me I was shocked. So when I arrived in Taloqan, it was much better. Gary was alone, I must admit, and I couldn't comprehend how Gary was there alone, no stuff. Somebody, sometimes you want to digest the information. But shortly managed to find out midwives. Very slow, very slow. You can do at least one activity for 2 days. It's just so slow. And as person who goes with programs, the responsibility that I have to carry this evaluation is, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this with such a pace, timelines, limitations, resources, and my own thinking? Because my own thinking is, how am I, grown up in the East, having values of Eastern concepts, and then a lot of knowledge and concepts I've developed in the West, and not being in the East. So there's a lot of questions that you come with, a lot of unpacking, perhaps in the first stage of program evaluation. There's a lot of unpacking. Gradually, it was like 2 weeks, 3 weeks down the road, we managed to find midwives who were willing to talk. And talk is not an interview. It's just willing to talk. How is it, and what are their feelings about the midwife programs? Because we were trying to figure out whether it is effective, and what is the way we can handle the programs further. But again, good things is that every midwife that is in the field, they are invisible. They are invisible. It's just you literally have to take every information slow and find out where they are. Good or bad, I knew the language, the local language, that I can talk to a lot of women, but it's a level of a trust. Like it's a level of, I don't want to sound like woman knows woman, but it's a lot of to be humble enough to accept what they're going through. Because at the very first questions, what do you think about the program? I don't remember. What program? I'm taking so many trainings. Which one are you talking about? And then the whole stereotype things is like, is this Tajik? Like, it's why is she asking about, So there's a lot of things that you have to unpack, or at least just go back. I would go back to Gary and I say, tell me what I don't know. What is it that I'm missing? What is it? So evaluators perhaps are picking the pieces together and trying to figure out what it is about. But very interestingly, as you keep pushing, asking questions, what happens is like they start opening up. And then you yourself, questioning yourself at your capacity as evaluator or as program designer is like how far I can go. I don't want to, for me personally I don't want to bridge the ethics of research. Sometimes you go, you heard what they said and you leave. But for me, it was carefully looking at what the perception they're bringing, and the midwife programs were actually gone through phases, phase 1, phase 2. So when I embarked into the field, it was already past 6 months. And then that's where you have to, knowing and understanding what all these midwives are bringing, the luggage with, the heaviness, the difficulties, how they even agree to come and to talk to me. It's a lot of efforts that all these women come and talk to me. As you open up, you melt the ice, they really open up. Then it's too much of information. It's a lot of information in Dari, and I would come to Gary, it's like, what is it? So it's a lot of questions. Did you know about it? Did you know about this element? Did we know about it? So now when it's a lot of information, there's implication for program design. So what is it that in a program we're missing? What voice that we're missing in the programs? Do the women are comfortable talking to women? Do the women comfortable talking about the other issues that they consider learning rather than just the technical midwifery, health, literacy skills? So, and then a lot of assumptions. Some women couldn't even read. A lot of assumptions. They would come to the training and then midwives, but they're having hard time to read. They're having hard times, and I assume that they know how to read, or I assume that there's a good comprehension of my questioning. And other things about in evaluation, especially in this case, I had to travel to the villages because it was hard to find the midwives, so you would literally go to their homes. And then, like cases, the mother-in-law would be present in an interview. With the mother-in-law, you just cannot talk. Husband would present in a room because there was a lot of Americans are coming to the home. God knows who is this lady coming to my home territory. And thanks God, for some reason, they allowed me to enter their home. And then talking about this midwife training. So there's a lot of ethics in research, in questioning, that I'd like to get the midwives to talk about because the mother-in-law is there. So for me, it was a good learning. Mother-in-law, she's present in the room, and